Gentlemen, welcome to the second Indonesia-Africa Forum 2024. Following the success of the first Indonesia-Africa Forum in 2018, the second Indonesia-Africa Forum is a platform for concrete economic cooperation with Africa as Indonesia's key economic partner. This year's theme is Bandung Spirit for Africa's Agenda 2063, emphasizing shared values and principles, which lays a strong foundation for robust, inclusive, equal, and sustained relations between Indonesia and Africa. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the first panel discussion for the day, entitled Outlook from the Region Update and Prospect for Cooperation. And to lead this session, we'd like to invite our moderator to the stage, Mr. Amit Jain, Director of NTU SBF Center, to be followed by our distinguished speakers, Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, Liberia, His Excellency Sylvester M. Grigsby, Vice President of the Commission of Economic Community of West African States Commission, Her Excellency Dame Tien Tichi Bija, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, Indonesia, His Excellency Pahala Mansuri, Director of Trade in Goods and Competition, African Continental Free Trade Area, Mr. Muhammad Ali, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs in charge of International Cooperation, Uganda, His Excellency Henry Oriam Okello, and founder of Bridgewater Associates, Mr. Ray Dalio. Let's give a round of applause for this panel discussion one. Mr. Moderator, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. MC. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real honor for me to be here, to be moderating the very first panel of the session. My name is Amit Jain again. I'm the director of a Singapore-based think tank. It's the only one in Southeast Asia that looks at Africa from a trade and business perspective. It's called the NTU SBF Center for African Studies. And a real honor to have Your Excellency Nana, who is here to grace the occasion. Joining me here today are an exceptional panelists. But before I start, here's a very quick pop quiz. Who can tell me which African country speaks a language that most closely resembles Bahasa? Very quick one, 2 seconds. Which country? No, which country? Which country in Africa closely resembles a language that is like Bahasa? Yes, who got that right? That's right. Sorry, brownie points to you. So please join me in welcoming our panelists here. On my left, His Excellency Sylvester Grigsby, Minister of State of Liberia. He has served as an advisor to the President of Liberia. His expertise spans economics and public policy. Now, for those of you who do not know that much about Liberian history, it was actually founded in 1822 as a place to resettle freed slaves from the America. It's rich in iron ore and is a member of ECOWAS. Then we have Her Excellency Dame Tien Chinchibija. She's the Vice President of the ECOWAS Commission. She's a development economist and only the second woman to occupy this position at the Economic Community of West African States. She has previously served as an advisor to the President of Togo and is a tireless advocate for regional integration. Thank you so much. We have Pak Pahala Mansuri, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. Interestingly, he comes from a solid background in finance. Before taking this role as Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, Pak Pahala served, believe it or not, as a CFO for the state-owned energy firm Pertamina, and has also served at Garuda. And at one time, he was also named as the CEO of for ASEAN, as the best CEO for ASEAN. So thank you so much for being on the panel. Mohammed Ali, on his left, is the Director of Trade in Goods and Competition at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is better known by its acronym AFCFTA. Now, for those of you who do not know AFCFTA, it is the most ambitious economic integration project ever undertaken by any regional body. If successful, it will effectively transform the entire continent of 1.3 billion people into a single market, lifting more than 30 million people out of poverty by 2035. That's a very ambitious plan. And on his left, we have His Excellency Henry Okello, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Uganda. He's in charge of international cooperation. Minister Okello is the only one in the panel with a background in law. He practiced as a barrister in Britain before returning to Uganda and jumping into politics. Since you're the host, and of course on his left we have Ray Dalio, the founder and CIO, is that right, of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's best-known hedge funds. He founded it in 1975 and made it into a multi-million-dollar investment powerhouse today. Ray, you're known as something of an oracle in the Wall Street for your ability to foresee events. He's an author and a renowned leader on financial issues. And as I discovered yesterday, he's also a very keen oceanographer. So that's an interesting combination there. Pak Pahala, let me start with you first. You're the host of the event here. You have, of course, emphasized the importance of reviving the global spirit of South-South solidarity. There's a lot of trade potential between Indonesia and the states of Africa. At least in one estimate, it's said there's an untapped potential of $5 billion still to be untapped. Could you identify some of those critical areas where you see most the possibilities of cooperation?
Well, thank you, Amit. His Excellency, President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, all of the panels and the speakers, and also all of the attendees today. Thank you very much for attending the first panel discussion. As you know, we just finished the high-level meeting also, which was actually led by the leaders and also with the ministers. Now, for Indonesia, for us to be able to organize the event today is really about how are we going to be able to forge a much closer relationship between Indonesia and Africa. Because there are a couple of reasons why we are actually organizing this event this year. This is actually the second time we are organizing the Indonesia and Africa Forum. And the number one reason is that there is a lot of historical relationship that we have between Indonesia and Africa. As you know, in 1955, we had the Asia and Africa Conference. At that time, the spirit is about how are we going to be able to develop the global solidarity between the Asia and Africa country. And this is actually one of the momentum for the Asia and Africa country. This is actually also the beginning of what we call the Global South countries. So in addition to the historical reasons, we also see that there is a lot of opportunities for Indonesia and Africa to work together, particularly in the four major sectors. Number one is in the area of energy sector. Indonesia right now, we import about 500 to 600,000 barrels of oils per day. So this is actually one of the areas how Indonesia are going to be able to develop energy security in collaboration with the African countries, knowing that about 10 to 12% of the global reserve of oil and gas is actually based in Africa right now. But not only about the fossil fuel or the hydrocarbon energy, we also see that in the future, there is a lot of opportunity for us to develop what we call a more stronger global supply chain for the critical minerals, and in particular, the critical minerals that are going to be very important for energy transition in the future. And because of there is going to be the effort of the climate change and how are we going to be able to support the energy transition in the future, the demand of the critical mineral is expected to grow by more than 6 times from what we are actually seeing today. Now, Indonesia may actually have a lot of nickel right now and also copper, but to actually build and produce a battery as one of the important part of the energy transition in the future, we also need other critical minerals like lithium, as well as cobalt and graphite. And we believe that all of these critical minerals, we have abundance of that in Africa. The third is actually in the area of food security. We see that in the area of food security, there is a lot of opportunity for both countries to work together because there are going to be about 1.7 billion population combined between Indonesia and Africa, and this will continue to actually grow in the future, and therefore the need for both regions to be able to produce enough food for the population is of course going to be absolutely critical if we are going to be able to continue to grow. And the fourth is about in the area of healthcare. Right now, Indonesia is already producing about 1 billion vaccines to African countries, and I think healthcare is actually going to be very, very important to ensure that we are going to be able to continue to develop improve the human capital index. As you know, Indonesia and Africa, we have a shared vision of how are we going to be able to become a much more developed countries by the year of 2045 until 2063, as has actually been charted by the Africa Agenda 2063. And therefore, human capital index is absolutely critical, and therefore food, healthcare is absolutely critical also for Indonesia as well as Africa. So these are the 4 major areas, 4 major sectors that we see there is a lot of potential for both Indonesia and Africa to work together to allow us to achieve our own vision to become a developed and more the global superpowers of the region. I think right now, it's very timely for Indonesia to look to Africa as a development partners. And we hope that the African countries will see Indonesia as such as well.
But Bala, Indonesia has been remarkably successful in tapping its nickel reserves and has a very ambitious drive towards EV batteries. Considering that this is something that a lot of African countries too have been trying to do, adding value to the natural resources that they have, and the difficulty that they have had on that road ahead, what sort of lessons can Indonesia, what sort of lessons from Indonesia can African countries derive? And maybe this question, may I direct it towards Her Excellency Chinchiba, if you could underscore the need to add value to the rich minerals that West Africa has and the lessons that you could perhaps take from Indonesia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for the invitation and also welcome His Excellency President Nigeria alone, and we also need to look at some reciprocity, making inroads for African businesses to also be able to establish businesses here and conduct business here in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps, Your Excellency, Mr. Grigsby, Liberia has a unique place not just in the history of Africa, but in cross-Atlantic relations as well. One of the challenges that Liberia has, it's a very large youth population that needs to be educated and be put into productive work. What reforms has Liberia introduced, and your own take on lessons from Indonesia?
Thank you very much. Your Excellency President Ado, fellow panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A few years ago, I worked with Mrs. Sirleaf on a high-level panel to develop a migration policy for Africa. I think that program was sponsored by the UNECA and the African Union Commission. And we tried to find out the causes and drivers of migration. And I'd like to refer to the famous saying by Dr. Adesanya of the ACDB, when he says that our youth belong to be at home in their countries, helping to develop their countries, and not in the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. Part of the problem that we've had, especially after our recent history of conflict, has been to find employment opportunities for the youthful population. Over 60% of our population is classified as youth. So what do we do? Well, one of the things that we have been able to look at is what can be done with South-South cooperation, especially the model that Indonesia has been promoting. After our conflict, many of our traditional partners shied away from investment in certain areas. But Indonesia, like my president said this morning, gave us a vote of confidence right after our government, after the country returned to peace, by allowing an Indonesian company to invest about $2 billion in the oil palm industry. And that has helped to create job opportunities for many of our young people. And we believe that if we can expand that kind of cooperation South-South, where we all understand the conditions, the constraints on development, the constraints on investment, but where we all understand that and are willing to take the leap, then it's possible that we can reinforce each other's efforts in regional integration and South-South cooperation. And I think that is a model that we need to continue to expand on, especially so in the spirit of Bandung for the African Agenda for 2063.
Thank you, Minister Grigsby. I think this will appeal to you as well, Minister Okello. The large diaspora of Ugandans overseas, their contribution to the economy of Uganda, and your need to bring them back home, the talent back. So this is a major brain drain that Uganda has suffered over the years.
Your Excellency, the President of Ghana, and colleague panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is true that Uganda has a very high population of youth. I think well over 50%, I think it's 60% of our population is formed of young individuals and young youth. And over the years, due to political turmoil and seeking opportunities, a lot of them have sought opportunities abroad. We have a very big diaspora in the United Kingdom, in the UK, and many more because these are English-speaking countries. But over the years, also now we have many more who have ventured into Europe. In addition to that, the increased universities in Uganda, we have almost 15 to 18 universities. And these produce well over 60,000 youth per year, graduates who come on the streets, and government has not got enough jobs for them. There's not enough jobs for them in the private sector, and yet they're all seeking for opportunities soon after universities to look after themselves and look after their families, and hence to put enormous pressure on the economy and demand to government to give them jobs or create jobs for them. The way government has been trying to go around this is to try and reskill most of the graduates, to reskill them so that they can become job creators rather than job seekers, by giving them practical skills in which they can be able to fend for themselves, and give them soft loans, what they call youth loans, so that they can become entrepreneurs and then generate the income. But on top of that, there's also a blessing in a way that the diaspora remittance to Uganda has exceeded close to $2 billion per year, and it forms part of our GDP now. However, it is the sad affair that we have lots of our young people, young men abroad, especially skilled ones, nurses, doctors, and engineers, and others. One of the unfortunate things also is that a lot of our youth who go and study abroad and excel and do well in some of these countries, then these countries offer them residencies and opportunities to work in the industries. They have all kind of tricks in catching them by offering them 2 years so-called youth employment. And when they get a taste of working in Western Europe after 2 years, then they're offered a residency, and hence they stay there. And the best part of their life and the youthful production part of their life is to Western Europe, and we lose all that skill and opportunities. Yet it is us or our taxpayers who might have funded them to go and study abroad. So the youth factor, opportunities, brain drain is a very big problem. Not only to Uganda, but to Africa, that we are losing so much of our youth to the diaspora, and yet these would be youthful youths who would be able to help us in the development and transformation of our countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to Muhammad Ali. Under the AFCFTA, you have a very ambitious plan to achieve 90% liberalization on goods traded between the continent. Could you give us a quick update on what the progress has been so far and some of the achievements that the AFCFTA has done?
No, thank you so much. Let me start, of course, by recognizing His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, our visionary host of the AFCFTA. So I would say the AFCFTA project as a blueprint project for Agenda 2063 moved from the stage of being wishful thinking or a vision to be a reality. As we speak now, we have 40 7 state parties, African state parties, who already ratified the agreement, and we have 39 of them implementing the agreement. The agreement of the AFCFTA aimed to liberalize the tariff over 97% of the goods. Currently, as we speak now, it is 90, but in the next 10 years, it will be 97%. When we started the AFCFTA, of course, everyone knows the challenges that we started in the middle of COVID-19, so that delayed us a little bit. But as we speak now, if you recall, in October 2022, we started the agreement, or we started seeing goods moving from country to country under the coverage of the AFCFTA. We started with only 7 countries: Ghana, Egypt, Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, Cameroon, and Tanzania joined. As we speak now, that number increased to 39 countries. And we are having the second event of the Guided Trade Initiative, where we will celebrate that number, celebrate that level of trade in Rwanda, Kigali, in October.
Could you explain to the audience what that Guided Trade Initiative really is?
Well, the Guided Trade Initiative, as I said, we have the agreement, a very beautiful architecture agreement, that a set of rules that all the African countries agreed on, and that rule was there, entered into force in 2019. Entered into force 2019, of course, the whole world were in a freeze situation in 2020 and 2021. So our heads of state and government, they met together for the first time, and they announced the start of trade as January 2021. But we as a AFCFTA, we noticed that there is no trade happening on the ground. So we took multiple different initiatives to start with those who are ready. And for the Guided Trade Initiative, we go to the country and engage and start to see what is the specific need for each country in terms of regulatory requirement, speak with the private sector, establish a pipeline of trade with other African countries, and start maybe provide coverage for this pipeline of trade in terms of supporting them logistically, supporting them in terms of engaging with the importing country, and make sure from the beginning to the end that trade is happening under the AFCFTA, and that by itself proves the concept. And once we prove the concept and unlock the trade between 2 countries, we started to see the flow of trade happening between the different countries. So that is the Guided Trade Initiative.
Thank you so much, Ray. Now, finally, let me turn to you. You know, when countries like Indonesia knock on the doors of hedge funds, they are all over wanting to invest, and the kind of premiums that Indonesia pays is way below what African countries have to pay when they go to the global capital markets to raise finance for the long-term investments. You know, the role that hedge funds such as yours play in channeling excess capital from where it's available to places where it's really needed is critical. The last day that you have heard and been talking to African leaders here, is there any ground for optimism in your view that this might begin to happen?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it, particularly at this time. Just in my few minutes, I'd like to describe what's happening, and from my perspective around the world in a historical perspective. I studied the last 500 years of history, and we see it now. There are 5 major forces that are underway. The first is the internal financial money debt cycle, the money question. Second is within the countries, the wealth gaps and the values gaps that is bringing about an internal conflict. In the United States, we see the extreme left, the extreme right, and that's creating an internal conflict. And this is true of many of the developed countries. So this is very important for the rest of the world to understand what is happening in these developed countries and the internal conflicts. The third is the external conflict, the changes in the world order, from a dominant power to a conflict between influences from the United States and the West, in some cases, and China, and so on. That conflict is an important factor. Number 4 is the climate. Changes in climate and their implications are estimated to cost about $8 trillion a year in a world economy that has $100 trillion. So the changes in climate are going to have a very, very big effect in changing the whole landscape of the world, and that's particularly true of the global South. And then, so these forces, also technology, artificial intelligence, is going to have a huge effect in the way things work. All of these forces create a pull that creates a diversity that is going to create a great problem, a great challenge. Each of those first 4 of those, the internal financial one, the internal political one, the conflict in terms of world powers, climate and its implications, and then, of course, technology, will tend to cause greater wealth and impact differences between countries. And so I think that most important is how that's going to be dealt with, the great gaps. So when I look at it, I think that the world order is changing in this way, and how we approach those differences together, because there are going to be great forces that are going to pull us apart and be threatening. And the real question is how we're going to work together to deal with that type of a challenge.
Thank you. Pahala, that's an interesting segue to you, perhaps. You can already see the change delivered by developing countries. G20 as a whole now contributes more to the global economy than the G7, and it is playing a big part. Indonesia is now a rising middle power, and at the end of this this event, China is going to have its own Africa Forum, FOCAC. But we can see that the easy financing coming from China peaked in 2016. It's been steadily going down. Do you think the middle-income country, middle powers like Indonesia now have the wherewithal to cover the big financing gap that developing countries, not least Africa, have?
Well, thank you. I think that's why I actually started with the idea about how the Global South is actually going to be able to work together. And the whole idea that was actually mentioned by Ray just now, these tensions tend to actually make people feel that they need to actually choose the sides. And I think by Indonesia trying to actually develop the relationship with Africa also provides diversification to what the Partners for Africa is. Because I think right now everybody tends to actually be in this whole geopolitical tension, how each of the countries are going to be able, and there are probably for some that tends to actually choose to be more independent and not being boxed into any particular party that is actually having this geopolitical tension, then Indonesia would become an opportunity to diversify the relationship, in particular in developing the sectors that are more strategic. I think Ray also mentioned about one of the key strategic sector right now is the critical mineral and the critical minerals processing. Particularly right now, for example, if you look at the concentration of the production of these critical mineral processing, particularly the midstream part, is right now probably 70 to 80% being concentrated into one particular country, whether it is actually in the investment that is actually being made, the exports of those critical minerals from the countries, including those countries coming from Africa, as well as the technology. So all of these things, whether it is actually technology, investment, and the flow of the goods itself, and how are we going to be able to build a much more solid global supply chain of these very, very strategic materials or very strategic commodities that will define the future in terms of one of the big idea is this will actually help support the global world to be able to transition into the new energy. So this is actually, we hope that even though maybe we don't have the kind of capital, but we provide the kind of opportunity or the kind of option for people, for countries or for regions that would like to avoid to be boxed into be able to choose the side in this whole geopolitical tension, which is actually not that dissimilar from the situation that we faced in 1955. I mean, coming back to this whole Global South and Asia-Africa conference that we saw in 1955, at that time the world was also faced with having to actually choose between the conflicting parties as well. So the challenges could be very different, but the whole tension and the situation was actually pretty similar in terms of how are we going to be able to work together as a Global South to make sure that we are going to be able to benefit from these whole natural resources and be able to actually continue to develop a deeper manufacturing sector. This is not going to be easy, but I think with the effort that we are actually going to be putting together, and it's not something that is actually exclusively just South-South. I think there's a lot of North-South will need to actually happen as well, to try to diversify in terms of the technology, to diversify in terms of the investments as well. And a much stronger global supply chain will come out from a more diversified global supply chain in the future.
Thank you, Pakpala. You know, I would imagine that this is something that would be uppermost on our African panelists' mind is the need to have a much fairer global financial architecture, considering that all the African countries nearly face a huge challenge in acquiring finance at the right price for their development needs. Would any of you like to address it, Minister Grigsby, in your country particularly?
Thank you. This has been something that we are very much faced with on a more than regular basis. Since coming to power, we've been trying to reform in a way that we interact with our development partners and servicing our debt. Yes, it continues to be a challenge, and we keep groping for answers. In fact, we just completed a program with the IMF to get some support that satisfies some conditions to ensure that there is financial stability and so forth. One of the things that I'd like to address too, and expanding on the theme of the South cooperation and the initiative of Indonesia, is the fact that Liberia has been more or less in the forefront for constructing regional integration bodies, economic bodies, for example, starting with the Mangrove Union, where we help each other across borders. Some of the problems that are too big for any one country to handle, we share intelligence, and our various bodies, respective bodies, cooperate with each other. we've done that within the Monetary Union, and now we're extending it to the ECOWAS region. And thank God that many of the members of ECOWAS have bought into that kind of solution sharing that we are faced with.
Thank you so much, Minister. You spoke about ECOWAS. Until recently, it was seen as one of the most integrated regional groups in the continent, and most of its economies were very fast-growing, envious. But lately, there have been setbacks, both on the economic front, certainly with large economies like Nigeria, and also, if I can ask you to address the big elephant in the room, it's the breakaway of the 3 Sahel republics from ECOWAS. Is there any move to bring those differences, to address those differences?
Well, it's true indeed. We've had some setbacks on the political front, but quite frankly, we are faced with a situation in terms of security that will compel all of us to come to the negotiation table. So whether those 3 member states decide to leave or not, we still remain brothers and sisters, and at ECOWAS we are still working very hard in engaging them, and having an open door policy. It's the decision to exit from the community. It's rather sad and unfortunate, because together we are stronger. And looking at how integrated this world has become, and how interdependent we have become, it's important that we stick together as a regional body. But I must say that despite our differences, we've got communities with families on either side of the borders. So even if these 3 member states were to leave, they will still have relationships with the rest of the community, and we'll have to find ways to continuously engage them. Now, the real problem that we face in our region is the threat of terrorist attacks, and at ECOWAS we have an action plan to eradicate terrorism in our region, and we're working very hard to implement that plan. But that plan is of no use if the epicenter of these terrorist attacks being in the Sahel region, mostly Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, if those countries are not at the table in order for us to engage them and have a regional strategy that would help us eradicate terrorism. So we face an existential threat from our perspective in light of the terrorist attack that we're faced with. So it's important that we all together work hand in hand to find a solution. And it's not just the region, West Africa alone, but all of us, because I keep telling a lot of our partners that whether we like it or not, whatever is happening in West Africa, the terrorist attack that we're faced with, one way or the other will find its way to your front door. So it's important that we together work to find solutions to this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister Okello, one of the things that makes an economy competitive is power, energy. And I think Uganda is a stellar example of a country that has gone from maybe 6% access to electricity to more than 70% in a really short span of time. How were you able to do that, and what impact has that had on your economy?
Well, it's true that in the early 2000s, we had also the issue of power. And we had something called load shedding, where power was distributed on alternative days in part of the city, and the cost of access to power in industries was at around 14 cents per unit, and there was no attraction for investors to put up industries in the country because electricity was too expensive. And even development of homes and other private homes was a challenge, because even if you had a private home, electricity was very expensive. But fortunately, the government of Uganda took dramatic steps to address the matter. We decided to build 2 hydro dams at the same time through the assistance of the Chinese government. We built a 200 300 megawatt hydroelectricity dam and a 600 megawatt electricity dam simultaneously. As a result, we now have well over, but we had an existing dam which was producing 285 megawatts. So as a result of that, we've had over 1,000 megawatts of electricity. We've now got surplus electricity. In addition to that, we have sort of mini hydros up and down the country because of the many small streams and rivers we have. And we have obligations also and duties to export this energy to our neighbors. We have colonial agreements to supply electricity to Kenya. We supply electricity to Rwanda, and we do electricity to South Tanzania, and we're now extending to southern Sudan. Electricity has now dropped in the industry. We give it at 5% to 4% per unit. For domestic, it is about 7% per unit. As a result, it's attracted more industries, and now we've got so many what's so-called industrial parks, which is mushroom around the country. But these industrial parks are consuming up all these 600 megawatts so fast that the forecast is that within the next 15 years, we might have a problem with electricity again, because the industrial parks are eating 30 megawatts, 40 megawatts, 45 megawatts, and so on and so forth. And I think in another 15 minutes, it will all run out. However, His Excellency the President has invested. He has about 40 to 50 students around the world studying on how we could develop our own nuclear power energy in Uganda. The land has been identified, soil samples have been taken, research has begun, and we have got already interested countries who are ready to start building in hydroelectric power so that we don't have any problem with power in the future. The problem, we could, of course, build more hydroelectric dams on the Nile, but the goody peoples who have demonstrating and putting all kinds of obstacles in building more dams on the river dam based on the issue of environment.
You know, we have come to pretty much the end of the session, but before I close, I do want to ask one key question, and anyone can answer that. The global economy has grown 14 times, trade 45 times in the last 70 years, and yet the share of the global output global output has risen from 24% to 43%, and yet the inequality in the world is wider than it ever has been. What steps can governments take to close that gap? Anyone can try and address that, please. Papahala.
Well, I think the unfortunate thing that we are actually seeing today is that the kind of resources that are available for the countries, the communities that require the most in terms of the development of sustainable development goals right now, as you speak, is actually getting less from what we saw several years ago. So this is actually one of the key challenges that we hope we need to actually reverse this trend as well. Now, I think in the past, the Global South is more at the recipient end of the development cooperation. This is actually something that we hope that in the future, one of the key areas that Indonesia wants to work also with Africa country, in addition to the sectors that I already mentioned, is also about how are we going to be able to start ramping up on the development cooperation also amongst the the Global South countries, rather than the developed countries, because it used to be that the general idea was, development cooperation should come from developed countries to developing countries. So we hope that in the future, not only by having more cooperation along the different sectors in the economy, there would be more development cooperation also amongst the Global South countries to really address the SDG issues. And not only that, I think we should also engage non-governmental entities, private sectors, maybe even others like philanthropic institutions, to also get everybody to round up to be able to actually channel all of the financing, all of the development cooperation work that is actually required to be able to ramp up again the resources that will be available to those that are actually requiring it the most.
The question is really one of collective versus individual interests. Per capita income, by most measures, everything in the world has more resources than we've ever had, more productivity, and this will accelerate with all of the technologies and so on. However, there's a great force of self-interest causing a fragmentation, the greatest wealth gaps within countries, between countries. If you look at the force of wealth accumulation, the forces of technology and such produce great circumstances in terms of gap. And so the world as a whole has more resources than it's ever had, better situations, but more fragmentation, more. And I believe that the question of self-interest versus collective interest is the main question in terms of what's to come in the future.
With that, we bring the first panel to a close. So join me in thanking our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Moderator and our esteemed panelists for the first panel discussion of the day entitled Outlook from the Region, Update and Prospect for Cooperation. President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, I'm grateful for the opportunity to address this forum. Our shared histories, aspirations, and challenges unite us in a common purpose to create a better, more prosperous future for our people. Today I speak on a theme that is central to this mission: wealth through health, Ghana's progressive journey to development and prosperity. In Ghana, we understand that the health of our people is the bedrock upon which our nation's prosperity is built. A healthy population is not just a moral imperative, it is an economic necessity. Health drives productivity, innovation, and growth. It is the foundation of a vibrant, sustainable economy. Ghana's health journey since independence in 1957 has been guided by the principle that the true wealth of a nation is not in its gold reserves, but in the health of its people. This belief has shaped our national agenda and inspired our policies to transform Ghana's healthcare system. Ghana's healthcare has evolved significantly over the years. We've expanded access to primary healthcare, improved sanitation, and tackled pressing public health issues. The establishment of the National Health Insurance Scheme in 2003 marked a pivotal moment, ensuring that every Ghanaian has the right to health regardless of socioeconomic circumstances. Today, the progress in the development of the NHIS covers some 56% of our population, making it one of the most successful health insurance schemes in the continent of Africa. In recent years, we have made other remarkable strides in healthcare delivery, focusing on building a resilient system capable of withholding economic fluctuations and health emergencies. The Ghana Health Service has decentralized healthcare delivery, significantly improving health outcomes, particularly in rural areas. We've achieved a substantial reduction in maternal mortality rates from 580 per 100,000 live births in 1990 to 310 per 100,000 live births in 2023. Similarly, we've made good progress in reducing child mortality, with under 5 mortality decreasing from 127 per 100,000 live births in 1990 to 41 per 1,000 live births in 2023, and enhanced our capacity to respond to public health emergencies. Our healthcare strategy also includes attracting investments. Building a sustainable healthcare system requires government commitment and active private sector and international partner participation. Ghana has positioned itself as a favorable destination for health investments, with a stable political environment and robust legal framework. One of the key initiatives of my government is Agenda 111, launched in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. This ambitious project is constructing 111 hospitals nationwide, ensuring every district has a well-equipped facility for essential healthcare services. This initiative is not just about infrastructure, but also transforming our healthcare delivery to be more equitable and accessible. We've also invested heavily in other healthcare infrastructure, building new hospitals, upgrading existing facilities, and equipping them with state-of-the-art technology. Ghana is also integrating renewable energy into our healthcare infrastructure, with projects like the Solar Energy Initiative providing reliable electricity to hospitals. This aligns with our commitment to environmental sustainability and ensures uninterrupted healthcare services, particularly in rural areas. But infrastructure alone is not enough. We are aware that the success of our healthcare system reforms will depend on the quality of our healthcare professionals. We prioritize the training and retention of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers, ensuring that they have the skills and motivation to provide world-class care. We've also enhanced our medical education system, creating opportunities for young Ghanaians to pursue careers in healthcare and contribute to our national development. Ladies and gentlemen, our commitment to health extends beyond the traditional boundaries of healthcare delivery. We understand that health is influenced by a range of social, economic, and environmental factors. That is why we have adopted a holistic approach, addressing the social determinants of health through policies that promote education, clean water and sanitation, nutrition, and poverty eradication. We're implementing comprehensive programs to improve access to clean water and sanitation, recognizing their critical role in preventing disease and promoting overall well-being. By addressing these foundational issues, we're improving healthcare outcomes and laying the groundwork for sustainable development. However, our journey is far from over. We face new challenges, such as the rising burden of non-communicable diseases, the impact of climate change on health, and the need to build resilience against future pandemics. But we are not daunted. We remain committed to our vision of a healthy, prosperous Ghana, and we will continue to innovate, invest, and collaborate with partners across Africa and beyond to achieve our goals. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let us reaffirm our commitment to the principle that wealth through health is a strategy for sustainable development. Let us learn from each other, share our experiences, and forge stronger partnerships to build a healthier, wealthier, and more prosperous future for our peoples. And Ghana stands ready to work with all of you to realize this vision. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency President of the Republic of Ghana. We greet farewell to Your Excellency. Thank you for gracing us with this venue. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to our second panel discussion of the day, taking the theme of mining cooperation with a focus on optimizing mining industry, opportunities and challenges in Indonesia and Africa. To guide us through this important discussion, please welcome our moderator to the stage, Managing Director, Africa at the Tony Blair Institute, Mr. Rishon Chimboza. And together with all speakers, we invite you all to come up to the stage. Minister of Minerals, Tanzania, His Excellency Anthony P. Mavunde. Deputy Coordinating Minister for Investment and Mining, Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Septian Haryo Seto. General Manager of the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, Mr. Engineer Blessed Chitambira. President Director, Indonesia Battery Corporation, Mr. Toto Nugroho. Let's give a warm applause once again for panel discussion 2. Mr. Moderator, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that. So we may begin. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Rishon Chimboza, and I'm the Managing Director for Africa at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. I'd like to welcome you to our panel entitled Optimizing the Mining Industry and How Both Africa and Indonesia Can Seize Opportunities Presented by Critical Resource Minerals. Before I introduce my esteemed panelists, I just want to provide some context to the discussion. Africa's mineral endowment is both diverse and abundant. As global demand for minerals rise, particularly those that are essential for renewable energy technologies, Africa's mining sectors are posed to play a crucial role in the global supply chain. The continent holds significant share of known global mineral reserves, including 92% of platinum, 56% of cobalt, 70% of manganese, and between 20 to 30% of global graphite reserves. In 2019, Africa produced almost 1 billion tons of minerals worth over $400 billion US. More importantly, as the world grapples with environmental challenges of climate change, the transition to a net zero economy stands out as the only feasible solution. Consequently, critical minerals have been rapidly positioned at the center stage of world competition and geopolitics, particularly amid the technological revolution and industrial green transformation that align with the goal of achieving a net zero future. For as long as I have worked with mining companies and engaged with the sector, the need for value addition and beneficiation on the continent has not abated. As the Tony Blair Institute has discovered across its work on critical mineral value chains, in pursuing this goal, international partnerships to share the benefits of sustainable technology innovation and financing will prove to be a pivotal game changer. The upcoming session that I'm about to start will delve into the landscape of Africa's mining industry, exploring both its immense potential and challenges that hinder its growth and sustainability. Harnessing resources effectively can be complicated due to a myriad of challenges. These challenges create an unpredictable environment that hampers investors' ability to engage in long-term planning and strategic investment, stifling the industry's potential for stable and robust growth. By fostering dialogue among stakeholders, including government, industry leaders, and civil society, this session aims to identify actionable strategies to enhance and maximize Africa's mining potential and opportunities. By doing so, the continent can unlock its mining potential in a manner that maximizes socio-economic benefits while safeguarding its natural environment for future generations. But before I begin the panel discussion, I want to introduce my panel. They all have fantastic biographies, but I'm not going to delve into each and every one of them. So to my left is His Excellency, Mr. Anthony Mavunde, who's the Minister of Minerals in Tanzania. Then sitting next to him is Mr. Septio Haryo Seto, who is the Deputy Coordinating Minister for Investment and Mining in Indonesia.
Then to his left is Mr. Blessed Chitambira, who's the General Manager of the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, which is the state-owned mining entity in Zimbabwe. And then to my extreme left is Mr. Toto Nugroho, President Director of the Indonesia Battery Corporation. I'll stay true to my African roots and start off with our hosts, Mr. Seto. How have Indonesia and Africa been collaborating effectively to harness the vast mineral reserves for the development of renewable energy technologies? Also, what types of investment are needed from Indonesia to support Africa's mining sector in accelerating the development of the renewable energy industry? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think this is very important questions. Yeah, as you already mentioned that Indonesia and Africa hold significant resources of the critical mineral that is important for the energy transition. Yeah, and I think based on that we have to have a same understanding that these vast mineral resources has to be developed for prosperity of our people. In that case, I think. In the case of Indonesia, we already started to develop our value-added industry, which I think on the mineral resources right now, we ban the export of the raw materials so that this commodity has to be processed in the country first before we can export to international market. Give you an example, in 2014, we export about 2.9 billion US dollar of nickel product, yeah, which is I think about 45% is nickel ore, yeah, which is the raw material. So since we do the ban of the export, yeah, for this raw material back in 2014 and 2020, right now our export of this nickel product has been increasing to about 34 billion US dollar. Yeah. So if you see the number is more than 10 times increase, yeah, in less than 10 years. Yeah. With this industry, we are able to develop our eastern part of Indonesia, which is I think previously is less developed compared to the western part. A lot of FDI coming into the region, and then I think it creates employment, it reduces poverty, so it creates prosperity for the people. Yeah. So I think this experience is something that we can share together with our African colleagues. Yeah. How we develop this value-added industry, what kind of environment and ecosystem that we need to set up, yeah, to attract those investment. Because at the end, if we just basically dig and export, yeah, without processing these minerals, creating significant value added for the country, then forever we will be always a mining country. Yeah. We cannot go into developed country becoming the industrial country. I think this is very important. You talk about the investment. I think yes, there are several companies coming out from Indonesia which already invest in Africa. In Zimbabwe, for example, this Indonesian company developed a huge industrial project over there. I think this is one of the key examples. But I guess one important things that we can share is the lesson learned that we have from Indonesia for the last maybe 40, 50 years. We rely on the export of the raw material, but we did a significant transformation for the last 10 years to push for value-added industry in our country, and I think it's been very successful so far. Yeah. So I guess this experience and lesson learned is something that we can share together with our African colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Seto. And I just want to pick up on a point that you had raised around value addition and beneficiation, and also the journey that Indonesia has walked towards that. And I'm thinking of the Tanzania example, right? We're living in very, very different times. We can't ignore the geopolitical realities, especially around critical mineral resources. And we also can't ignore the reality around moving towards low carbon intensity economies. And to do that requires very strong decision-making and very strong leadership. So Your Excellency, can you just talk to me about how Tanzania is prepared to maximize its critical mineral resources to meet the demands of a low carbon economy? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, moderator, for having afforded me this opportunity. Now, because time is a luxury we can't afford,
we have a comprehensive plan, but I'll just highlight on few areas which have more focus. Tanzania is one of the few countries in Africa which is endowed with abundant mineral resources. We have the range of minerals from metallic minerals to critical minerals to industrial minerals, as well as building minerals. Now, tapping the endowment that we have come up with a strategy of implementing a critical minerals value addition. One thing which is of utmost importance is the creation or advancing mineral development by ensuring that we have more knowledge on what we have underneath. This is exploration. Now, as we speak right now, we have only covered 16% of our country by high-resolution geophysical survey. So our aim is to cover 50% come the year 2030. And right now, we have seen the upsurge of our budget. The budget has increased threefold, and most of the money has been allocated to geological survey institution, where we are going to enhance exploration to make sure that we ascertain what we have underneath. So one of the biggest achievements that we are going to achieve soon is the purchase of an equipment that is an helicopter, which will fix with the geophysical survey equipment to scan the whole country. That is number one. But the second strategy is that we are building capacity of our people. We want our people to be skilled and to actually match with the growing demand of the critical minerals in the world, because you can't have a workforce which does not have specialized skills in critical minerals, and then you triumphant that you can achieve better results. So this is the area where we also put more focus. And the third area is we have the legal frameworks that prohibits the export of raw minerals, and we want the downstreaming of minerals to be conducted within Tanzania. And we have promulgated that in our laws, that no minerals will be exported unless it is processed within Tanzania. And we have one big project which is a model, and we have asked the other investors to emulate that model. We have the project of Kabanga Nickel in Tanzania, where the BHP company is involved. Now, the BHP company is going to construct a multi-metal refinery facility in Tanzania, where all the concentrates will be processed in Tanzania. So we have asked other investors as well to emulate that model. Besides, we have also enacted the law that, as I've said, prohibits the export of raw minerals, but we have also made bold statements, especially the one which I made during my budget session, that we'll never issue a special mining license to any investor unless he produces a comprehensive plan on how he'll add value within the country. So this is the second approach that we have taken. And the third approach that we have taken is ensuring the compliance of ESG on the issue of environmental protection, as well as social impact and the governance as a whole package. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Your Excellency. And I like the direction which this conversation is going, because it's a dose of pragmatism in terms of what is required to create incentives to invest sustainably within your mining sectors. This is both for Indonesia and Tanzania. But at the same time, the imperative for what I would call an enlightened national interest, which actually puts the country's interests front and center, but at the same time also prizes collaboration. You spoke about your country's diverse and vast mineral endowment, but I'm sure my colleague here from Zimbabwe would also attest that on a per capita basis, they also have a very vast mineral endowment. So I just want to take a step back from the conversation of value addition and beneficiation and just talk about the basics, right? The actual mineral resource. Mr. Chitambira, I would like to know what are the key critical mineral resources that present significant opportunities for exploration and development in Zimbabwe? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, for allowing me the opportunity to contribute. Zimbabwe hosts a lot of minerals. We have got more than 60 minerals, and out of the 60, 40 are only being mined in terms of production. That exactly opens up opportunities for exploration. There are a number of clusters in terms of mineral resources within the country. And the critical minerals we are talking about lithium, copper, nickel, gold, platinum, coal, among other minerals. Coming to, in terms of lithium, I think the whole country has got mineral resources of lithium that need to be turned into reserves through exploration. The country, in terms of lithium, it's actually a new venture which basically started in 2022. But already we have more than 7 big companies that are now involved in lithium mining, processing, and production. The country is poised to produce more than 1.5 million tons of lithium